Are you looking to grow your dental practice and attract top-tier new patients? Discover the potential of digital marketing with a personalized strategy session. Join Lila Stone, the marketing director at Equa, for an exclusive 90-minute consultation. Lila and her team will dedicate 6 hours before your meeting to create a customized marketing plan specifically for your practice. This valuable opportunity is free of charge and comes with no commitments. Visit www.insuranceuntangledorg/MSM to schedule your meeting with Lila today. You'll also receive a free analysis report so you can start transforming your practice through the power of digital marketing.
You are now listening to another episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast, where we explore the various challenges faced by dental practices due to their reliance on insurance. Join us in this podcast as we dive deep into the issues surrounding dental insurance dependence and offer practical solutions and strategies to help you take control of your practice's financial future.
Welcome to another amazing episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast. My name is Ben Tuyene, and I'm one of the co-hosts of this podcast that's dedicated to helping practices that are tangled up with insurance. Y'all know we talk about all things dentistry, and it's more so to help you take control of your practices and create a bigger, better, brighter future for you and your patients and your team members that hopefully is less insurance dependent, but more profitable all around for your practice. So today I have my good friend and co-host Naren with me, and we're going to be interviewing Naren. Naren, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Ben. And yourself?
Doing wonderful, thank you. I'm super excited about today's episode, so we're going to dive right into it. So the title for today's episode is From 6 Figures to 7 Figures, Lessons to Learn. And I guess what we mean by that is that 6 figures in terms of practice revenue these days, it just doesn't cut it. You have to set your sights higher, and it's for a variety of different reasons that are out there. But what I want to start with here is just some context. So we came across an amazing story from a dentist who went from 235,000 in collections to over 1 million a year in just a 4-year period. And we knew we just had to share this with you because this is an amazing story. So this story is packed with lessons on marketing, mindset, smart strategies, and a number of other things that are very helpful for practice owners these days. So let's break it down and answer some of the biggest, or at least some of the big questions that a lot of the dentists might have with regards to this topic. But Naren, I guess a good place to start is, can you give us a summary of this practice and this 4-year journey from start to finish?
Absolutely. So this doctor, now I want to say something before I jump into the story, Ben. I think today $1 million is like the minimum. Like if you are not aspiring to get to $1 million, you might as well not be a practice owner, because with cost of living and all the expenses going up, I think $1 million is kind of like the baseline. So if anyone is listening to this podcast who's not doing $1 million, great episode. And then of course, those who are doing $1 million, hopefully you can also leverage some of the lessons learned from this experience and what we're going to talk about today to further your success. So this particular practice, the doctor, moved from a bigger city he wanted to kind of have a simpler life. His wife's family lived in this small town and they wanted to move back, and they had 4 kids. So they wanted to raise the kids and make that the focus. So he didn't want to spend all the money that he had saved up and from his prior practice. He wanted to keep it. He wanted to use it to his house and obviously, keep it as savings. So he bought a practice that was doing $235,000 in collections. He pretty much got a really, really good deal. He just, didn't have to pay much because this particular doctor couldn't make it. So he bought this $235,000 collection practice in this small town. And this was, I think, in the beginning of 2020. Of course, COVID hit. I think he was negotiating the deal in end of 2019, and then I think he bought it like in January of 2020. Then COVID hit. Of course, everything went for a 6. He was, I think, closed for like 2 months or so, and then he had to kind of catch up. So even without looking at all the free money that the government paid, he was able to grow his practice to $400,000. Which I thought was an awesome accomplishment. Like the way he did it is he was very, very thoughtful and systematic. And I know we're going to jump into more of the lessons later on. And then, of course, next year, 2021, so he saw a big jump from 235 to 400. And the next year was more of a stabilizing year. He went to $500,000. And in year 3, 2022, he went to 700,000. And year 4, 2023, he went to above $1 million. So he took a practice that was doing 235 and literally quadrupled it in less than 4 years. And it was a fee-for-service practice. I think he had one insurance, if I'm not mistaken. So that was like 20% of his patients. So on 80% of his patients, $800,000 of his patients, he was collecting full fees. Many of you know with a PPO practice, you're only collecting like 60% on the dollar. So you're doing more dentistry than what you get paid for. Like, 1.5 times the dentistry to get paid $1. You're doing $1.50 worth of dentistry to get paid $1. Because 80% of his practice was all, fee for service, he was keeping all that money. So his profit on this $1 million practice was like, I think, close to $360,000. Of course, that includes his salary. Not too bad, right? For somebody who moved into this town, wanted an awesome lifestyle, was able to build this practice, working 3.5 days a week and doing $1 million. He had the life that he wanted. He had the environment he wanted. He had an awesome team, and he was very profitable for working 3.5 days a week.
Yeah, I love that. He's making more profits than what the practice was doing in revenue when he took over.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
We see that too. Like a lot of times where, we assess a practice in terms of the fee schedules, and a buyer gets a fee schedule of a number of PPO fee schedules that are higher than what the seller's previous office fees were. And I love hearing stories like this because it brings a lot of hope in terms of what anybody can do with a dental practice or a business, So question I have for you, I know that this was in a rural town. Is that right, Naren?
Yeah, it's in a small town. Yes.
Small town. Okay. So is this kind of growth exclusive to small town dynamics, or does this work in big cities as well?
It works everywhere. Like I had another client, she was working, 4.5 days, doing 650. This was, around 10 years ago. And she was able to double her practice to 1.3 million and end up working 3.5 days. That was in a big city, in DC, close to DC in Virginia. So like as big as it gets, as crowded as it gets. And so I do think growth is possible everywhere. Of course, I think it's more so than the location. It's the dentist, or more so than the town, it's a dentist, and how they run the practice, how they think about the practice, what they do, what they don't do. I mean, I think in many cases, the things we do hurt us more than the things we, don't do. So it's like figuring out what are some of the things that we are doing that's counterproductive, stopping those, and then creating new habits that are productive.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this particular practice, I guess, the big question, so this practice fee for service, right?
Yeah, mostly fee for service. 20% of the patients were PPO, one PPO plan. And the reason he took that plan is because, it was like the largest in this area, and they paid reasonably well. And there were a lot of, government type employees who belonged to that, that insurance plan. So he didn't want to alienate them, and he just didn't want to make it difficult for them. So he made a strategic choice based on the fact that they paid 80 cents on the dollar versus 60 cents on the dollar. And because he didn't want to alienate certain groups of people. So, so it doesn't mean that you have to go all the way to fee for service. You could, go 80% fee for service, like in this case. And this town was not a rich town. It had a lot of, blue collar workers, but just like everybody else, they also appreciated dentistry, and many of them didn't have proper healthcare, and because of the work that they were doing, they still wanted to take care of their teeth. So he created a membership plan, for example, to make it affordable for them to bring their families in for regular cleanings and checkups. He focused on high value dentistry. He specifically focused on Invisalign, and he attracted people by showcasing cases, by leaning in on Google and SEO. He also focused on sedation, because there's a lot of people who haven't had dentistry done for a while, and he realized that he can cater to them with sedation. So he did a lot of big cases where there's a lot of dentistry, a lot of neglect that he was able to rectify and fix and sort out for people. And he also educated his customers. So he created this group of people who really appreciated him, appreciated the team, and above all, appreciated their health. So it was kind of like rewarding. So I remember talking to some of the team members there, like 2 years into it, they felt like they are going to a different practice, and they're not the one that, like, this particular team member came from the old owner. So it was just like day and night, just the vibe, how excited people were in the work they were doing. I mean, the employees, and how she felt about like the difference she was able to make as part of this new practice, making a difference in that community.
No, I love that. So if you don't mind, I want to share my personal experience with what you just said. It's hard for me to compare myself to a dentist because, we don't have the same restrictions of being in network and getting a lower fee to collect on your services. So we're like a restaurant business in the sense that we control our own pricing, right? When our costs go up, so do our prices. Unlike when you're in network with insurance, your costs go up, you're still screwed, with those lower fees. So the question that came to my mind is fee for service really the key here? And around this same timeline, Naren, I doubled my business as well during that same timeline that we talked about. And the real key for me was adopting the fee for service mentality. The standard pricing that we had was the equivalent to a 40% write-off for us. And once I just eliminated 20%. And it was so interesting that particular year when we first raised our fees 20%, we doubled the business. And it's more so because we were able to add a dynamic to our services, better, more qualified people, right? Being able to keep up with the competitiveness of the workforce, right? And having the things that attract the quality people to your business. And so what I found in my own exploration of the fee for service model, not being a dental practice myself, is adopting the fee for service mentality. It helped in a big way, kind of like Gary, when Gary studied the Kodak study. I researched that and I applied some of the mathematical formulas, and it was a very simple concept for us to double our revenue, but it was more so looking at it from the perspective of we added 20% to our fee. Then we were able to afford things that we needed to better serve the clients, that resulted in better reviews and more referrals, right? But in a practice dynamic, Naren, is fee for service really the key in terms of controlling the fees to where doctors have more breathing room to be a lot more successful, a lot more profitable?
I think I would have to agree with that because, let's kind of do some basic math. Let's say you're running $1 million practice with 10% profit, okay, or 15% profit. So you're taking home $150,000, right? Now you raise your fees on the same practice because you're getting draft PPO plans. Therefore, you start getting full fees. Now, let's say you add an additional $300,000 without doing more dentistry, just by not letting the write-offs come in, right? And when I say 300,000, maybe the fees went up by $500,000, but maybe you lost $200,000 worth of patients. So net, you're doing $200,000 less dentistry, but you're collecting $1.3 million, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're doing $200,000 less dentistry, is your expenses going to go up?
Oh.
No, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
so you're doing 20,000. More than likely it could go down because you might, you might not need as many people. So let's say you're being generous. You want your people to really relax and enjoy themselves. So they're saying, hey, do 80% of the work you were doing before, but we are making $300,000 more. So what does that happen? What does it do? It drives your profits. That is, he's now making 400 grand instead of 100 grand. Now that 400 grand means you can invest in more, marketing to attract better patients. You can, train yourself to be able to provide or do bigger cases. You could attract and keep even better people. You could invest in technology. So it's almost like it creates this, think of this image of, picture of like a snowball rolling down a hill, right? It gets bigger and bigger. That positive momentum that started with extra money in the bank because you're not taking those cuts anymore makes a massive difference, right? And that creates opportunities for you to do all kinds of other things. So it's like, I'm sure you heard of the word, right? Success creates success, just like failure creates failure. So the question is like, how do you get that, snowball to start rolling down the hill? And that's with you adjusting your fees. In your case, you increase your fees, but in this case, you stop taking 40% or 60 cents on the dollar because of the PPO plan write-offs and stuff. So, but I mean, in this particular doctor, the example that I shared with you, he started small. So he didn't have any bad habits to correct. He just started targeting these people who were willing to pay full fee. He stopped being on these PPO plans. The doctor who was doing $235,000 was on. He got rid of the worst ones. He just zoomed in only one and then get rid of everybody else. Just kept one plan. So I agree. I think, and of course, with some of the extra money, he invested in marketing. He hired us and we helped him dominate Google. So he was getting like 25 to 30 new patients every single month. And these are not patients who are PPO patients who are paying you 60 cents on the dollar. These are patients who wanted those big cases, like sedation cases or Invisalign cases, and they were willing to write bigger checks and pay full fee. So like sometimes he was making $10,000 to $20,000, and as opposed to when he took over the practice, it was all like all PPO and all like few $100 here, few $100 there. So he was working harder on day one than he was when he was 4 times bigger, just because the way he set it up.
Yeah, I love that. And then the more and more I kind of observe the SEO strategies that you and your team implement, I got to say that it makes such a big impact in dental practices in terms of growth. But let's get back to this particular example because this one is amazing. So in terms, while we're along those lines of marketing, Naren, what kind of marketing actually worked for this doctor, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, the marketing that worked is, so there's 2 things that he really, really focused on. One is, dominating Google. So he started working with us. We started by identifying the services he was already providing, plus the ones he wanted to grow into. Within a span of 12 months, we helped him dominate his local area. So like a 1 hour radius, he was ranking for pretty much anything and everything on page 1 of Google, which means the top 10 results. And in many cases, top 3 results. So when people looked for dentist near me, dentist city name, dentist zip code, Invisalign, sedation, all the things he cared about, he was at the very top. So that means very quickly, within like less than like 12 months, people started noticing him, right? Because people use internet all over the world, right? They don't just use it in one place versus the other. So they started noticing him. The buzz started building. The thing that he did to help himself when we were working on SEO was Google reviews. So he really got disciplined on getting 10 or more reviews every month. So he got like, I think some months 12, 13, 14, but he never went below 10. So he kept getting these Google reviews. So anytime a new patient came in, he mastered how to convert them into fans. So they would write these paragraph reviews, what I call love letter reviews. And before you know it, the reputation also started helping him because more and more people started accepting treatment. We also looked at his phone calls, and then we realized in the early days he was not booking as many patients as he thought because the team was not trained properly. So we took the conversion rate from around 35% to like 80%. So when you combine Google reviews with amazing phone plus amazing SEO, you have a winning formula. The beautiful thing is, this kind of marketing was costing him like $1,200 a month versus imagine if you get all those $1 million worth of patients from PPO plans, you would be spending $500,000 a year, which is $40,000 a month in marketing. Remember, PPO fees, the only thing they do is drive new patients. So if it's not a marketing expense, what is it? It is a marketing expense. Therefore, it's a marketing expense, right? Because that's all they do for you. So instead of spending $40,000, he spends $1,200. That means the extra $38,000 every month that he's saving without wasting on PPO plans and write-offs now goes to investments and profitability, which made everybody happy and successful.
Yeah, no, I love that, Naren. I'm sitting here thinking about this story and putting myself in the shoes of the doctors that are listening to this. What are some of the big takeaways as a practice owner when I'm looking at this story? Can you summarize what are the takeaways that are relevant to me as a dentist that's, I'm doing the day to day, I haven't seen this kind of growth. How can I get there?
Yeah, I really think you have to stop and think for a minute. And I would recommend booking a marketing strategy meeting so we can help you, like from the marketing standpoint, helping you attract the right patients at a fraction of the cost. Because, PPO patients are the wrong patients, because the first question is it covered by insurance? So you end up doing tooth dentistry, right? Like, $500 here, $300 there, $1,000 max per year, and so forth, right? Which is really like soul sucking dentistry. So it's very, of course, when you are not motivated, when you're not excited, your team sees it, they're not motivated. Everybody's just like, to go to the salt mine again, that's the practice. Every day is, headaches and problems and everything else. So stop and think, what do you want your life to look like? What kind of dentistry do you want? What kind of patients you want? And then start taking control. Of course, marketing will attract the right kind of patients. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to work on it. Yes, we can help you dominate Google and get the phone to ring, but you have to help with Google reviews. You have to, work with us on, training your team on how to answer the phone. So there are pieces you have to also step up and do. But when you start, attracting the right kind of patients and doing full price dentistry and your numbers start improving, what happens is subconsciously that success creates confidence, and that confidence drives even more success. When he first started, he only wanted to do Invisalign, and then he got into sedation. So like it just keeps growing, right? Your confidence grows, your team's confidence grows. So they got very good at explaining why sedation makes sense. And especially for those patients who hated going to a dentist, who came in for the first time, they were doing these comprehensive cases, of course, a lot of fillings and, a lot of little stuff, but combined, it was a lot of dentistry. So the patient got healthy and, got their dental health to a certain baseline, and then of course the doctor's revenue started growing. So I think start by making a decision. Have a marketing strategy meeting. The meeting link is insuranceuntangled.com/MSM. We'll put a link in the show notes as well. We'll tell you how you are doing versus your competition. Like if your marketing is weak versus your competition, you have a huge opportunity to make it one of the best, marketing. So you are attracting better patients at a fraction of the cost. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about, how much am I spending versus what am I getting out of it, right? So you want to get the most and spend the least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love it, Naren. I think that's a formula for success that we can all adapt in our own businesses, So, so for our listeners, if you're ready to build your own 7-figure success story, I mean, I think to me, it really all starts with a very strong, focused marketing strategy that sort of highlights the strengths that you have, and in a way that allows you to attract the kind of patient that you want. So let's get creative and and really tailor marketing goals to what you want it to be. But being in dentistry for so many years, but just in business for even longer, it all makes a difference with the kind of marketing strategy and marketing partners that you have. And there's no better marketing partner than I recommend than Naren, Equa Marketing. So check out the Insurance Untangled /MSM.com link that Naren, insuranceuntangled.com /MSM for the marketing strategy meeting. If you request that, I can promise you and give you my personal guarantee that'll be totally worth your time. Naren, I always love chatting with you. Thank you so much for your thoughts and amazing wisdom that you shared today. And I just want to thank you again for an amazing episode. And I want to thank our listeners for joining us today on another episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, share this with your friends. Give us some love and share this on social media. Give us some good reviews, some constructive reviews. Of course, that'll help other doctors find our content. And don't forget to visit insuranceuntangled.com. We hold quarterly webinars, and as well as a bunch of other perks and freebies that we give out on a regular basis. Until we meet next time, folks, we wish you the very best of success. Take care.